one of the things that you will hear constantly throughout the day is the school should intervene and teachers should teach and there should be this done from the perspective of the education system. The reality of the situation is in many instances the education system is inept to make any sort of intervention. So what we need to do as a society, bring young people into the fold. Let them say what, how, and how best they learn, and give them that opportunity. Or else a lot of the problems, we can have these conferences, I will come here and enjoy the food, but the results will be very little unless we make a concerted effort to hear from the people that we're seeking to intervene with.
Just this question, I'm really impressed with you young people. I'm proud of all of you. But I would like for you to just think of this. I've heard of the discussion focus on the young man and the young lady. But there's a third person that is in the discussion. And that's the baby, that's a person with rights as just like you. And when there's a pregnancy, there are three persons and not just two. And in all of your discussion, my question is to what extent that you as young people are prepared to honor and respect the rights of the unborn child. And one of the things that I could tell you as a parent, I had 3 kids. I just lost my only son about 2 years ago at age 27. And I still grieve the loss of my son. But I have 2 daughters, wonderful children. And I recall saying to my wife when she would say, whether you want a boy or girl, I used to say that I cannot say boy or girl, I just want a healthy child because I'm afraid of having a disabled child. But I've seen people with children with disability, and that child is the object of the love of that family. And you see how they nurture. Having a child is a serious issue. And if you're going to discuss it in your rights, you must also subject that to the rights of the child. And that's not only for you, but a lot of adults are guilty of even stigmatizing the unborn child by discussing young people when they're pregnant, saying that the father is not that one and not that one. And I'm happy that you're not going to punish the father, because an unborn child should not start off in life by his or her father being in prison. And if that child right is being considered and ask that child about, he or she would say, no, I do not want my dad to be in prison. So I'm happy you've discussed it, but to what extent you're prepared to deepen the conversation among young people as it relates to the rights of the child? Thank you.
That is an extremely powerful question. I think there are many, many things to be considered in that, and I very much look forward to hearing the panelists' thoughts. So who would like to take that one first? Dominga?
Sure. I see you're looking at me and I love you having this discussion. But yes, personally speaking, I can tell you that my choices that have brought me here, the first thing that I think about, and maybe this is where we need to start, the first thing I think about when being in a relationship is I have to consider that the possibility of a child can happen at any time. And I always question myself, am I financially stable to take care of a child? Those are questions that we need to share.
Yeah, excellent, excellent points. Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially out of time for this panel. I will take any last comments that our panelists have, however. Final comments. All right, Chitira, they've designated you, so.
All right, I feel outnumbered. My final comments would be, we have to cooperate. I would say a multifaceted approach needs to be taken. So I would refer to SDG 17. So partnership, including young people, needs to, only just having this stage is a beginning. So just not making policy about us, but also including us when making these policies. So those are my ending remarks, and I hope that we as young people can keep learning from the older generation, and that the older generation are open to hearing from us. Yes.
Thank you.
And I would share the same sentiment, especially the last question was an opportunity for me to really sit down and reflect. Because, as I said, I'm fairly young. I have never been in a situation where I had to truly consider the situation, considering, what it is like to have a baby. And that question was really an opportunity to say, hey, we must really consider the responsibility of having a child, and that the children have rights, the babies have rights. And so I'm really grateful for that question. But what I would like to end by saying, I would challenge each and every one of you in this room to take what you learned today and educate at least 2 persons within your community. Just 2 persons, and encourage them to educate someone else. Because as Kamali said earlier, it makes no sense that we come here and we sit in these conferences if at the end of the day the community does not benefit. And so that's all I want to empower and encourage each one to do.
My final comment would be this. I think all across the world, young people are packed with talent, they're packed with capacity, they're packed with innovation, they're packed with so many positive aspects that we often don't see. I think, well, I'm now old, so I can say, as adults, we need to find opportunities to give them spaces to contribute, and not just to contribute so that you meet your youth quota or your youth requirement, but to contribute in a manner that is not just hearing, but listening. And I think when we reach the point where our young people can genuinely contribute to the development of our countries, we'll see real progress. Because the reality of the situation is, the problems of today are the problems that I will have to deal with and my children will have to deal with. So I have a vested interest.
Thank you. And closing thoughts from you, please, Domingo. And thank you, panelists and audience. I think we've had an excellent conversation here this afternoon, but that is where we leave you for the youth panel. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
That was an impressive session from our youths and hearing. We had an impressive session from our youths, hearing their voices, their impressions, their thoughts, and of course, their vision for the way forward. In reflecting where they were speaking, when you heard aspects of a report, the report they were speaking about was the state of the world population. It's an annual report published by the United Nations Fund. The theme of the 2023 report is 8 billion lives, infinite possibilities. The case for rights and choices. Each edition covers and analyzes different aspects of the population. And we want to give our young people another round of applause for expressing their views. I want to also take this opportunity to recognize 3 of Antigua and Barbuda's own. Aaron Gittins, Pia Nichols, and our very own Esquire Henry. They participated in the OASCCAD Caribbean Youth Forum on Drug Use Prevention, and they won Best Project in collaboration with Jamaica and Suriname. I am going to also give a reminder again for you to please check your flights. All right? The Secretariat is asking you please to ensure that everything is in place for those of you who are leaving later tomorrow and of course the day after. Please check your flights, check your departure times and the times for your transportation. I'm going to give Ms. Sheila Roseau, the coordinator for the SIDS conference, an opportunity to give us a brief overview of the SIDS conference.
Hi, good afternoon, friends and partners. Let me first thank the organizers of this conference to give me this opportunity to just give you share with you some brief information on the UN 4th SIDS conference. You may remember yesterday when Dr. Natalia, the executive director of UNFPA, mentioned that the ICPD 30 will be held in between the SDG conference in September and the UN SIDS conference. And I know some of you may be wondering, what is the SIDS conference? Well, this is what I'm here to tell you about. Just a brief information to let you know that Antigua and Barbuda has the opportunity to host the 4th SIDS conference. Now, the SIDS conference, they're held every 10 years. We had the first one in Mauritius in 1994, and we have Diane here who informed me this afternoon. She was part of the coordinating committee for that Mauritius conference. Then we had one, the second one was held in Barbados, then Mauritius, and the third one, which was held in 2014 in Samoa. So the 4th one now is due next year, 2024, and Antigua and Barbuda has that, shall I say, enviable position to host this conference in collaboration with the UN. You may want to know, what is the SIDS conference? Well, just briefly, the UN 4th SIDS conference is a significant global event which aimed at addressing the unique challenges faced by the small island states As you know, you'll agree that SIDS are characterized by their vulnerability to climate change, limited resources, susceptibility to external shocks, and the list goes on. So this conference will provide opportunity for governments, international organizations, civil society, and other stakeholders to collaborate on strategies to promote sustainable development in the SIDS countries. Now, some of you here would be working on the Samoa Pathway, implementation of the Samoa Pathway, which was the result of the Samoa meeting. So the result of the Antigua meeting next year, it's another program of action for countries, SIDS countries, to implement. Now, the Samoa Pathway, now, in order to basically, the information that will be included in the outcome document from the SIDS conference came from some regional conferences that were held. As you know, there are SID conferences in Africa, SID countries in Africa, Indian Ocean, Pacific, and of course the Caribbean. And there were 3 regional meetings that were held from July until I think the last one was recently. One was held in Mauritius, one was held in St. Vincent, the Caribbean one was held in St. Vincent, and the one for the Indian Ocean was held in Tonga. The outcomes from these conferences, regional conferences, were taken to a meeting in Cape Verde, which just concluded. And those outcomes, the recommendations, will form the basis of the program of action from the 4th SIDS conference. Now, the conference will be held from the 27th of May until the 30th. We're expecting approximately, just based on the last conference in Samoa, we're expecting about perhaps an approximation of 5,000 persons. So it's a huge gathering. We're expecting heads of states, prime ministers, international agencies, funding partners, partners like yourself, governments like yourself. This is why I did not want to miss this opportunity just to give you a brief information on the SIDS conference so that you're aware, you can put it in your diary. And it's a UN conference, so invitation will be as per the other UN conferences. We do not have we will not be issuing the invitation. It will be treated as a normal UN conference, so that process will continue. So to sum it all up, just to say that this conference provides a critical opportunity for the global community to affirm its commitment to supporting the sustainable development of small islands. By sharing knowledge, strategies, and best practices, participants will work towards a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future for SIDS while contributing to the broader development agenda. So as the coordinator for this conference on the ground, we are basically engaging with a number of stakeholders. Some of you here from Antigua and Barbuda will be invited to a CSO stakeholders meeting. We have been engaging with the private sector. So the plans are coming on very well. And some of you here may be wondering, where will we host 5,000 people? Yes, we can host 5,000 people because the conference will be held, the venue will be at the American University of Antigua. So we'll have the whole premises there dedicated to the SIDS conference. So thank you again for giving me this space and opportunity. Feel free to ask me any question. Our office is based there. Some of you know my number already. You can always call me and I'll be happy to provide more information. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're drawing to the end Who's excited? Nobody. Colleagues and friends, and we've had 2 wonderful days of sharing, exchange of experiences, challenges, lessons learned, and we also celebrated our successes. We celebrated our achievements, our best practices, and we've really come together as a little bit closer as one Caribbean, one sisterhood, one brotherhood. And so for that, I think we ought to give ourselves a round of applause for all the speakers. From day one, we had 7 sessions, and we had a very powerful closing. So I would want to invite you to give the young people another round of applause. What we heard were unfiltered, uncoerced opinions of our young people who are capable, who have opinions, who are experiencing life just as we are, and their perspectives must be taken into consideration. At this time, we are a bit behind schedule, yes, but this is the best part. We are concluding, and we are going to have our closing session now. And so I will begin with a bit of a protocol. This session is being live streamed. Is it? Yes? And so you all are invited to continue, following us at UNFPA Caribbean on the various social media platforms, and you can always tag hashtag ICPD30. Now, so to greet everyone, Senator, the Honorable Samantha Marshall, Minister of State in the Ministry of Social Transformation, distinguished members of Cabinet and members of Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean, Your Excellency, Dr. Natalia Canem, Executive Director of UNFPA, Ms. Deanne Quarles, Director of ECLAC Sub-Regional Headquarters for the Caribbean, Excellencies, delegates, staff of the United Nations, and affiliates of UN organs, ladies, gentlemen, friends, colleagues, brothers, sisters. We now begin the closing session. The first part of that session is the reading of the conclusions, a summary of all the perspectives that have been brought together over these 2 days. 2 very short but long, meaningful days. And so at this time, I invite Minister, Honorable Samantha Marshall, to the lectern to share with us what these conclusions are. Please welcome her.
Thank you so much. We can all smile. We have done well. We have done well. Give yourself a round of applause. And of course, it's indeed my pleasure to bring to you the conclusions of the Caribbean Forum on Population and Development. The Caribbean Forum on Population and Development was held in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda during the 4th and 5th of September 2023. It reviewed progress in the implementation of the Montevideo Consensus on Population and Development 2013 in the Caribbean over the period 2018 to 2023, and identified actions to accelerate the implementation of the consensus. This sub-regional review formed part of a region-wide review of the Montevideo Consensus, which in turn represented the region's contribution to the global 30-year review of the Program of Action from the International Conference on Population and Development, 1994. The forum was organized by the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, and the Ministry of Health, wellness, social transformation, and the environment of Antigua and Barbuda. The review was informed by national reports prepared by Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. In addition, 7 countries provided information in response to a questionnaire to update the virtual platform for monitoring the Montevideo Consensus on Population and Development. Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Dominica, Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. The meeting was attended by representatives from the member states of Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. The following associate members: Curacao, Montserrat, and St. Martin. Representation from regional and international organizations included the Caribbean Community Secretariat, CARICOM, the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, the International Organization for Migration, Pan American Health Organization, United Nations Children's Fund, the University of the West Indies. There were also representatives from the International Planned Parenthood Federation and other non-governmental organizations. The forum is situated within the context of the ICPD 30 review process and takes place in between the SDG Summit in September 23, the 5th meeting of the presiding officers, and the extraordinary session for the commemoration of the 10 years of the adoption of the Montevideo Consensus. The 4th Small Island Developing States Conference in May of 2024, and the Summit of the Future in September of 2024. During the 2-day forum, governments, policymakers, parliamentarians, academia, youth leaders, and civil society organizations from across the Caribbean discussed around the progress of the implementation of the Montevideo Consensus, stressing those issues that affected the sub-region: high external migration, aging, climate change, high adolescent pregnancy rates, high youth unemployment, crime, and violence that affects especially young people, and gender-based violence. But with shifts in the sub-regional population structure, some concerns over how these changes, such as changing migration patterns and rapid aging of populations, are taking place while the sub-region still sees too little progress in the reduction of maternal mortality ratios, adolescent pregnancy rates, and the violence against women and girls. Demographic trends, including falling population growth, aging, and migration, are at the heart of many of the Caribbean's most pressing development challenges. The development of human capital, addressing the situation of Caribbean youth, gender equality, sexual and reproductive health, building universal social protection and health systems, migration and adaptation to climate change, and reduction of poverty and inequality. All of them are affected by and will affect population dynamics. Accelerating the implementation of the Montevideo Consensus on Population and Development, therefore, is essential to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Certainly, We need data to generate evidence-based policies and programs. Without adequate data systems and institutions able to collect and analyze disaggregated data, planning for sustainable development is a huge challenge. It is important to note that a country that invests in its younger generations, that promotes insertion of women in the labor market, that is friendly towards immigration flows, and that promotes protection systems and services that minimize the dilemma between reproduction and production will face future challenges in a better way. The forum discussed a number of priority areas that are critical for moving the Montevideo Consensus and ICPD agenda forward, such as follows. 1, demographic trends. An increasing number of Caribbean countries are seeing declining populations, but the issue has received relatively little attention. More consideration should be given to the implications of population decline, including its potential benefits. 2, data. The availability of reliable, accurate, and timely data to inform policy and planning is improving slowly, but is still far from sufficient. Bearing in mind the range and complexity of the development challenges that the Caribbean countries are facing. The availability of data on poverty and inequality, essential sexual and reproductive health indicators, and the more effective use of administrative data are areas which need particular attention, while also seeking to exploit the potential of non-traditional data sources. Number 3, migration. Coordination channels between sectors and between countries must be strengthened to facilitate labor mobility, including implementation of the long-held ambition of free movement among the members of CARICOM single market and economy. Taking advantage of the benefits, addressing challenges associated with irregular labor migration, and expanding the opportunities available to citizens of the Caribbean community, especially our youth. Cooperation frameworks should also be developed to manage migration and displaced persons in response to disasters, while migrants and refugees fleeing from humanitarian crises should be protected and guaranteed access to social services in education and in health. Number 4, climate change. The effects of climate change is now a reality in the region. The annual Atlantic hurricane season and other natural disasters putting most of the countries and territories at risk. Urban and rural planning must fully integrate environmental protections, climate mitigation and adaptation strategies, resilience building, and disaster risk management. Number 5, adolescent pregnancy. The Caribbean region has had the second highest rate of adolescent pregnancy in the world. Adolescent pregnancy adversely affects the life of young girls, hampering their psychosocial development, contributing to poor health outcomes for girls and their babies, negatively affecting their educational and employment opportunities, and contributing to the perpetuation of intergenerational cycles of poor health and poverty. A more holistic approach is required to support girls' rights and to empower them to avoid unplanned or unintended pregnancy, including the provision of comprehensive sexuality education investments in girls' education, prevention of child, early and forced marriage, sexual violence, and coercion, and ensuring access to adolescent-friendly services in a non-judgmental manner. Number 6, young people. There must be greater urgency in our focus on youth in the Caribbean, on investing in youth, creating opportunities for youth engagement and empowerment, and ensuring decent work for young people. Voices of adolescents and young people, especially from marginalized groups, are essential to guide more inclusive and effective solutions with them being protagonists in the defense of their rights. Children must be protected against all forms of violence, neglect, and abuse, and the quality of education, training, and apprenticeships must be improved to meet the needs of the knowledge economy. Number 7, mental health. The issue of mental health and well-being has emerged throughout the discussion, with the COVID-19 pandemic having prompted greater attention to this issue. As with physical health, mental health needs to be addressed as a life course issue. There is a need to support the capacity building of healthcare providers and frontline professionals on mental health. Number 8, gender-based violence. This remains a key challenge in the region. There is a need to build the capacity of institutions to deliver the essential services packages for survivors of GBV in key sectors such as law enforcement, the police, the judicial system, and health and social services. Addressing the root causes of GBV and negative social norms is also very critical. Number 9, universal access to sexual and reproductive health. Progress has been made in ensuring universal access to sexual and reproductive health and rights in the region. However, we still have unfinished business. The maternal mortality ratio in the Caribbean is still significantly higher than in developed regions. The maternal mortality ratio is estimated to be 81 per 100,000 live births in the Caribbean, compared to 88 for the LAC region. There is a need to improve the quality of care to end preventable maternal mortality and expand access to voluntary family planning. Number 10, leaving no one behind. While forms and drivers of exclusion may differ by country, inequality is a pervasive feature of all Caribbean countries. Women, children, youth, older persons, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and migrants, among other groups, experience prejudice, discrimination, and exclusion. It is those who belong to more than one of those groups who typically fear the worst. The full implementation of the Montevideo Consensus provides a framework to work towards the full enjoyment of human rights by all. It is high time to bring the promise of Montevideo to everyone, leaving no one behind. Finally, the Caribbean Forum on Population and Development is an invaluable opportunity to engage with governments, CSOs, partners, and donors, and reinvigorate support for the implementation of the Montevideo Consensus on Population and Development, which is crucial to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. A call was made for participants to utilize the forum summary of issues as a basis to define a common agenda to address the unfinished business of the ICPD Program of Action and the commitments of the Montevideo Consensus. My friends, my Caribbean brothers and sisters, no matter what nation or what country you represent, from the core of this document, it is your obligation to set your priorities. But this is the framework, this is the map that we should use to ensure that we do better for our people. Thank you for participating and all your contributions.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that usual powerful delivery and for sharing with us a very comprehensive conclusion from our 2 days. If you missed it, these are demographic trends, data, migration, climate change, adolescent pregnancy, young people, mental health, gender-based violence, universal access to sexual and reproductive health, and leaving no one behind. I ask you to now join me in welcoming our next speaker, a motivational youth advocate, Ms. Samantha Rampasad from Trinidad and Tobago, who will be delivering closing remarks as part of this closing ceremony.
Hi everyone, so I'm gonna start into the middle because we young people like to do things a little different, right? I'm not gonna be long, I know you've had a long day, but we're at the end. I wanna start off by saying thank you, and thank you. We have time and time again asked for a seat at the table. We have begged to be included in discussions and not just after the process where you come to us and tell us what to do. But we want you to listen to our issues, our concerns, and listen to our recommendations and inputs, and you have done that. Thank you very much. To the young people in the room, I hope the next time a meeting like this is held, the numbers triple. I also would like to tell you again, young people are going to be your greatest ally in this fight. Please don't think of us as young people with no issues and no idea of what we want. This generation is very well aware, and we are ready to make the changes that we all are striving to achieve. And the change that we really want, it's going to come from our young people because we are standing on the foundation that each one of you in the room has laid for us. And that foundation is very strong. And to my young people, earlier I mentioned that young people have power in their own right, but with that power comes responsibility and accountability. When you're working on projects to solve these societal issues, be mindful that you're not indirectly creating other problems. Be inclusive in your thoughts, be deliberate in your decisions. Go forward. Do not feel like you don't belong. Do not feel like you're not good enough, because you're more powerful and you have everything it takes. And we are the change makers that we've been dreaming of, that our generations before us have worked so tirelessly for. We have a lot of people in this room, it was mentioned also a virtual participant, who are first-time university graduates like myself. Your parents sacrificed a lot for you, and we owe everything to them. The generations that come from us need to know that we also made the sacrifice like everyone in this room. It is our time to do better and make that change. So in the next 10 years, we don't have to be discussing these same topics over and over again. Because the food is nice and the company is great. I love traveling, and, but we need progress, and that progress is coming slowly but surely. And once again, thank you very much.
You can stay. You should stay. Thank you again, Ms. Samantha Rampasad. Now do you understand why I said the motivational youth advocate? Please give her another round of applause. Please join me now again in welcoming the next speaker for this closing session to deliver closing remarks. This person is no stranger to the lectern, always delivering very insightful, very informative and instructive presentations. Miss Diane Corles from the ECLAC Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've been inspired by my young motivational speaker, and I'm so incredibly pleased with the summary that was just delivered by Minister Marshall. I mean, it's really quite incredible that we covered all of that ground in 2 days. I think you need to give yourselves a round of applause for that. And I also want to thank the team. Again, another example of the excellent collaboration between UNFPA and ECLAC, for them to have come up with that summary during yesterday and today is also awesome. I thank them for that effort. And I think it's just such a weighty agenda and so integral to the welfare and the future of our people. I just want to emphasize a couple of points that came out of the rich discussions, and I want to congratulate again all of our panelists. The enthusiasm and the commitment, the force of ideas, particularly that last panel that we had with the young people. I really just so totally enjoyed that level of commitment and the interest, especially the young teacher, who was telling us how he deals with his students. It gives much encouragement for the future. What resonated with me, the whole reflection on the importance of our proceeding with a rights-based approach, because it is that respect and recognition of the rights of our people, to protect and uplift them, that should be underpinning all of our actions. That rights-based approach is absolutely crucial, and it should start with our empowering the individuals, particularly our young women and girls, that has been well discussed this afternoon. Empowering our women and girls, giving them that agency and that voice to defend themselves, but also the protection of migrants, LGBTQ, persons with disabilities. I think that the discussion on the challenges that persons with disabilities have and the importance that we should give to defending and supporting their ambitions is extremely important, which brings us the second aspect of that rights-based approach, imbuing that sense of responsibility across our community. It's not about, I think somebody mentioned it very well here, it's not about warning our girls not to put their information online. It's about communicating to the wider community that sense of responsibility, to respect people's privacy, and to behave in a more responsible way as a community. So that community-based approach to promoting the welfare of all is critical, and linked to that, the third aspect of that rights-based approach, that change in the cultural norms that has also been raised here. We need to change the cultural norms that keep us blindfolded and blinkered and resistant to change. That is something that we are going to have to all work on together. And finally, the role of institutions, and I really appreciated the story we got about the lady who took the boyfriend to court. And the importance of the police, of academia, of our institutions in imbuing that power and developing that sense of agency in the individual, but also ensuring societal protections for all, shelters, and the protection that the police should provide, and the courts for recourse. So we need to ensure that we give attention to our institutions and that our institutions support the rights of our people. So going forward, and I too also, I enjoyed the food, but I didn't come here for the food. It is about where we go from here. What action? What do we take? We have a saying, it's a song in Jamaica, but I think it came from a saying that says, action, not a bag of mouth. We don't, so we had plenty out here today, but now we're looking for the action. And you know, we've heard, and I enjoy the message of peace, but now I am going to also advocate the message of courage, because a lot of what we are going to need to do is going to take courage, individually and collectively. We cannot hide from the difficult issues. We need to be able to speak in our families, in our schools, in our communities, about those difficult things, whatever they are, and there are many of them that have been raised throughout our discussions today. Such rich and marvelous and truthful discussions. We need to have the courage, not in a room like this where we're all on the same page, but when we go into our communities, where you have the stigmas remain, we are going to have to be that voice of courage that takes the thing forward. We have spoken about partnership, and that means all aspects of our community, the academia, civil society. We have not energized and given agency and power to our civil society. We need to go back. That is the remit, that is the mandate that I'm giving all of you when we leave this room. The political will is there, and we have a range of ministers, justice and health and foreign affairs and social welfare, social transformation, which speaks to the range of issues that are covered, that are critical to promoting and protecting the welfare of our people. It involves almost every sector of our society, and I'm so pleased that we have ministers here who are going to take the leadership to our governments to advance these issues that were articulated by Minister Marshall a few minutes ago. And of course, we will continue to give our support in terms of making sure that there is data so that you are held accountable and that we are able to monitor our progress and identify where we need to go, where we need to change course. Data is extremely important in that respect. In terms of next steps, yes, we have the Summit of the Future. We have the meeting at Cochabamba, which is where we will review the Montevideo Consensus. And I'm hoping that we will be able to have many of the strong voices that we have heard over these 2 days with us in Cochabamba to ensure that the Caribbean voice is well articulated in the overall regional message that comes out of Montevideo into ICPD next year. But while we will deal with that at the international and regional level, what is most important is what each and every one of you does when you leave here and take forward individual spaces, because that is really where the difference is going to be made. How you continue to make a difference in your communities, because that is really where the change will happen, from the ground up. And that's what they say sustainable development is. It's a participatory approach, bottom up. We have to ensure that we embrace it and make that commitment. it only remains for me again to thank Dr. Canham and her spectacular team for the support that we have received. We act like I have to say we were the ones bringing up the rear. You all really did the heavy lifting, and we were extremely pleased to have that support. I want to thank the government of Antigua and Barbuda for the splendid support and the facilitation of our meeting here. Although we should have had a window in this room, I think, because the view outside is just so spectacular. And I also want to thank each and every one of you for staying, for making the contributions to our dialogue over these 2 days so rich, so rewarding, so promising for the future of our people. Thank you very much.
Action, not a bag of mouth. What matters is what we take forward from here today. That's the resounding message I got. Thank you so much, Ms. Diane Quarles, Director for ECLAC, Sub-Regional Headquarters for the Caribbean. It gives me great pleasure at this time to invite our next speaker, our very own Dr. Natalia Kanem, to deliver her closing remarks. Dr. Kanem is the UN Undersecretary General and UNFPA's Executive Director. Welcome.
Wow. Excellencies, honorable ministers, esteemed delegates, dynamism, leadership, strategic joint action. I extend my appreciation to the government and people of Antigua and Barbuda, and to each and every one of the delegates here assembled. This Caribbean Forum on Population and Development is part of the acceleration of progress by bringing data, by bringing evidence to bear to inform policies, programs, and to inspire action. Over these past 2 days, we reflected on and celebrated progress, yes, but we've also been looking ahead and focusing on finishing the unfinished business, weaving local learnings together with global perspectives. Speaker after speaker showed us that we're not short of good practices. We just need to ensure that these high-impact interventions are being implemented at the right scale with the right mix to uphold the sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and young people. And the evidence is clear. When women and girls can control their bodies and their lives, they chart their own destinies. And we are all one big step closer to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. How amazing and how wonderful. I believe we can all say that we are satisfied that we have come away learning a lot from each other, that it has been valuable to hear from each other within the region and to aspire to even better South-South cooperation. And one need look no further than right here in Antigua and Barbuda, which has cut its teen pregnancy rate by half in recent years, with tremendous social and economic benefits. And how did they do this? By reaching out to girls, to boys, to parents, to teachers, to religious leaders, and to communities, by connecting evidence, policy, and practice in the implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda National Action Plan to reduce adolescent pregnancy through dialogue, through political will. You've all said, and I think our session on adolescent pregnancy was astute in noting that adolescent pregnancy is really a sentinel event. It is a marker of the inability of young people to be able to access sexual and reproductive health information and quality services. It perpetuates inequalities. As we know, it's typically the adolescent girl who struggles with multiple intersecting forms of discrimination, who is most likely to become pregnant, to drop out of school, thereby limiting her own employment prospects, but also repeating the cycle for the next generation. Therefore, sustainable development will depend on an understanding of population dynamics and all of the changes that we've discussed in terms of fertility, mortality, migration, family arrangements, and population distribution. These are bound to have a critical impact on the ability of societies to advance in terms of social equity and economic efficiency. And these demographic changes have powerful implications for efforts to reduce poverty and inequality, to make gender equality real, to enhance the provision of universal education, environmental protection, true inclusion led by people with disabilities and others, and to focus on financing rather than short-term funding for development. And the lack of attention to all of these variables and trends hinders policy planning, and it stops us from having true equitable development. That's the purpose of our meeting, to make sure that we're focusing on things that are going to transform, address the unmet sexual and reproductive health needs of the population of the Caribbean, and to reduce harmful practices. Whether we call it child marriage or early union or whatever it is, that power dynamic has to be interrupted. And it's been beautiful to see Caribbean young people step up in their leadership. But as we've heard Samantha and others express, they're also counting on us, who already are counted among whatever segment of leadership or advocacy, to open the way for young people to be champions of their own rights, to help them to realize their potential, to fulfill their dreams. And I would love for us to explore possibilities for the type of leadership forums and young influencers that I've been learning about in our meeting here over the past couple of days. Technology we've touched on, and this is important because technology is the wave of the future. And we say that this is a wonderful opportunity to create, to compete, to prepare young people to be ready, and to make sure that tech is safe for women and girls, and that it advances gender equality. Because did you know that women are 30 times more likely than men to experience online violence, harassment, hazing, and doxing? We cannot allow technology to be yet another tool used to silence women and girls and to cast aside their contributions. Through the Spotlight Initiative and the UNFPA #BodyRight petition campaign, what we're also trying to do is to transform the stories of pain into stories of survivorhood, stories of women and girls reclaiming their inherent power and demanding their right to bodily autonomy. And these women and girls are calling on policymakers and on leaders in the tech sector to end online violence and abuse. The online environment merges with the real world. So, as we stand here halfway to 2030, 7.5 years to go to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, I implore us to focus on those investments that are going to have the greatest, most lasting contributions. And the good news is, as we've heard repeatedly, we have an arsenal of things that we know are going to work. So how to deploy them so that, for example, emergency preparedness mechanisms are in place before a crisis occurs to assure uninterrupted sexual and reproductive health services and to save lives. The provision of age-appropriate, culturally sensitive sexuality education for young people, whether they are in school or out of school. Improving access to quality services, and of course, family planning. And here, let's commit to strengthening our partnerships, joint resource and acceleration with civil society, with the private sector, with faith-based organizations, and with national family planning associations who have been doing this work on the ground and excelling over time. We, here in the Caribbean, are at a moment where, as we've heard, we're going to lead on the climate and energy agenda, the blue economies. So should it be in the social agenda that population and development offers. As we go forward, I want to see Caribbean men and boys standing tall as champions of reproductive health and gender equality and saying no to gender-based violence and lead the world in that regard. Dear partners, dear friends, wisdom from our ancestors. Sticks in a bundle will not break. The unity that this forum has provided means that you and I can leave here today with greater resolve to working jointly together in concert. And to me, that's been the magnificent power of this convening, to see the region standing together, committing to finishing the unfinished business, committed to upholding rights, choices, and dignity for all, and together combining our resources, our imagination, to strengthen access to sexual and reproductive health and rights, and putting a decisive end to the so far normality of gender-based violence once and for all. With this, UNFPA reaffirms our commitment to work with you, with governments and all partners to accelerate efforts to deliver on the promise of Cairo, of Montevideo, Nairobi, Cochabamba coming up in November, all the way up to the review of ICPD 30 in April in New York. Together with you, we will defend the human rights and dignity of women and girls. We will never give up. And together, we will keep moving forward. A luta continua. Adelante. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Natalia Kanem, for that beautiful summary. Ladies and gentlemen, our panel is an excellence of women. This is a beautiful process that we've gone through over these 2 days. We've heard the remarks. And one of the things I keep hearing a lot is the need for partnerships with our young people especially. And then, of course, the action that we have to put into place when we return to our respective homes and communities. But to now, and also the gratitude. I hear so much gratitude throughout these 2 days, and also from the persons on the panel now doing the closing remarks. But I want to now invite someone to deliver for us the official thank you for these 2 days. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Sarah Stewart, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Social Transformation, and the Environment. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you. Senator, the Honorable Samantha Marshall, Minister of State, within the Ministry of Social Transformation, distinguished members of Cabinet and members of Parliament of Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean, Our Excellency, Dr. Nathaniel Canem, Executive Director of UNFPA, Ms. Diane Quallis, Director of the ECLAC Sub-Regional Headquarters for the Caribbean, Excellencies and delegates, staff of the United Nations and affiliated UN organizations, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to address you all to close this session of the Caribbean Forum on Population and Development by thanking all those persons who worked diligently to ensure the success of this significant conference. We want to thank the members of the media, especially ABS, who cover this event, thereby spreading information to the public on the various issues of this conference. To those who worked on the technical side, to the engineers, the recorders, sound technicians, and background crew, I say thank you for assisting us with managing the flow and structure of this two-day conference. We want to thank the events staff of the Royalton Luxury Hotel, our interior decorator, and all the persons who assisted in creating the enabling ambience for deep discourse and for stimulating advancements in policy guidance and formulation. I wish to thank those who were responsible for guiding the deep, insightful discussions, namely all our ministers, dignitaries, moderators, panelists, members of civil society, and the intellectual minds who helped to drive these discussions. To those who asked questions in the name of pushing the goalposts further. To those who challenged us to elevate our current discourse, who told us that we have come far, but we still have further to go. Thank you all for reminding us of the important values that we are upholding, of the journey we are on, and of why we are here. We are here to champion and defend those who do not have a voice, namely women, girls, youth, those persons living with disabilities, the most vulnerable members of our society. I want to thank Her Excellency, Dr. Canem, and her experienced team of advisors, technicians, and organizers, but also for lending her thoughts and valuable opinions at key stages throughout the conference. Thank you. I think we should give her a round of applause. I want to thank Ms. Diane Quallis for inspiring the useful discourse on the need for better, deeper data collection to advise our decision makers on the real landscape we are confronted with on a socio-economic level. What can I say? Honorable Samantha Marshall, you were dynamic. You make us proud. We say thank you. I want to thank visiting delegations and local stakeholders, all of you who participated in this event and sought to drive our discussions on population and development further. Last, but certainly not least, all the hard-working staff from the Ministry of Social Transformation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, those who dealt with logistics, transportation, security, and generally all the members of the stakeholder committee. Ladies and gentlemen, all good things must come to an end. But Dr. Natalia Kanem said, even though all good things come to an end, we are committed to finish the unfinished business. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I would like to ask all speakers to remain. I see you're trying to escape. Thank you very much. You're asked to stay for a closing picture. So, photographer somewhere. Just a quick announcement before we leave. Quick reminder to check on your flights, check your transportation arrangements. We do not want to leave anyone behind, but if you don't do your due diligence, you might very well be left behind. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you very much. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for all that we've achieved over these 2 days. Sorry? Oh, yes. I would like to ask all ministers in the room, please, to join this photo as well. So they go down. The photographer is trying to coordinate whether you go down or stay up. Let's take it down, but let's take it down. You're staying up here for the photo? Sorry? 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 Oh, okay. Sorry? I think we have all of them now. Okay. Yes. Do we have all ministers, including ministers of state, on the stage now? Is anyone missing? If I define my protocol?